Hi. So my name is Ceinwen. I'm from Dublin, and I'm here today to talk about my daughter Chloe. I might jump around the timeline a little bit, but I'll try not to talk for too long as well. In October 2012, Chloe was 3, and she came down with enteroviral meningoencephalitis. It was a very quick deterioration. It began from a temperature and what we thought was a bug, to us calling an ambulance because I thought she was having a stroke. Her balance and her speech, they just deteriorated really, really fast. And within a couple of hours at the hospital, she was in a high dependency unit and still deteriorating to the point that she required breathing support. So at this point, she was transferred from Tala University Hospital to Temple Street Children's Hospital for ICU care in a specialist ambulance with an anaesthetist and a nurse. And we had to follow. So Chloe was in a coma for about a week. We were too afraid. I think I've missed some of these now. So that was just after she woke up. So she was in a coma for about a week. We were too afraid to leave her side. You're not allowed to stay in the ICU unit, so we stayed in a hotel across the road, even though we're from Dublin and the hospital was in Dublin. We were told to just prepare ourselves for any changes or what might come because it was so unknown. When she did wake a week later, Chloe was not able to, I hope I'm not triggering anybody with these pictures. She couldn't sit, she couldn't walk, she couldn't feed herself, she couldn't eat solid food, and she had her tube in for feeding. But eventually, the skills, they came back over the next few weeks in hospital, as did her gorgeous personality. This was Chloe straight after taking her first 2 steps into her daddy's arms, and to the point that she fell asleep straight away, straight after. Her gorgeous personality was still there. And after a month in hospital, we were discharged. So that was her, I think, the day before she was discharged. You can still see she was so tired though, but she was just back to trying to smile and trying to move around. And after a month, we were discharged and we were told to go and speak to the public health nurse. And I think this is the ride home in the hospital. I suddenly realised in hospital that I had no clothes to bring her home in. She was taken to hospital in pyjamas, and so family quickly gathered together a few bits, and the cardigan was knitted by a cousin of Pete's, of my husband. So we went to the public health nurse in our local health centre. Chloe was on a pureed diet still. They had removed the feeding tube. She was having suspected seizures. And at this point, I'd gone to the public health nurse and she asked me what encephalitis was. So this was the point that I realised that we weren't at a point of healing really as such, like it wasn't over, that we were on a bumpy road. It was really becoming very evident. The following September, Chloe had started school. It didn't go well. To be honest, she was a bit young. She wasn't able for the environment of school. The fatigue was extreme. The epilepsy hadn't been diagnosed yet, but was evident. And it was way too much too soon. And I think in hindsight, it was me pushing her to start because if she could get into school, everything was okay. I think that's probably what was going on. I should have known better. I'm an early years educator. I've been sending children to school for years. I really should have thought better about it. And I think it just kind of, in my head, it had put an end to the year. So in the October of that year, it was the first year anniversary from her recovery, and we pulled her from school and we sent her back to Montessori. And at this point, we got a private occupational therapy assessment done, so that when she was to return to school the following September, that she would have the necessary supports in place. Chloe was struggling with seizures, fatigue, the working memory was becoming evidently an issue, along with coordination and motor planning. So I'm very fortunate that my godfather, my Uncle Kieran, as I call him, and my dad's best friend, is a consultant neuropsychiatrist. So how lucky could I be? And his job didn't even twig with me, but it certainly did at this point, and I realised how lucky, and I went running to him for advice. So the advice that he gave us was to go and get a neurocognitive assessment done, which turned out to be so valuable to Chloe starting school as well. So when she did return in the September, she had a special needs assistant in place. The teachers knew how to approach her learning, and it was invaluable. It was around this time that I discovered the Encephalitis Society. So, and I remember really clearly my first conversation with John. I was standing in the kitchen in work, and it was so emotional that I was so torn between the recognition and the validation and somebody understanding and getting it to thinking, this is necessary. Do you know what I mean? That it's really needed and that there's a whole organisation for this. So I then joined every Facebook group that I could get a hold of for parents of children with brain injuries. And I learned so much just by diving in and talking to people and just learning from similar situations. In one of these groups, I actually met a friend who I've never met in person, Molly Jo. She's a fellow encephalitis mum in Texas. We've never met face to face, but hopefully one day we will. And she's been so supportive. Her son was a year ahead of Chloe's recovery with a similar story. And I learned so much from her and so much guidance. So I'm glad that we still talk. But now also I join when I can, the monthly encephalitis video calls. So the ones as well for parents affected, of children who've been affected by encephalitis, and also for people who've been affected, because I find I learn so much from adults, can tell me so much what they've gone through. And it's been invaluable. And every time I thought, I'd love to join these talks. Like, I could help another parent. And every phone call, I think I'm the person that's being helped every single time. But it's a journey. So we're very lucky. Chloe had a really wonderful primary school led by an incredible principal, and I can only describe it as the most neuro-affirmative environment. She was supported and nurtured, and I know that we're very lucky to have this, and not everybody has the same story. But through the guidance of the school in around 2018, we had an educational assessment carried out which allowed Chloe to be exempt from Irish language lessons. And I didn't realise how much of an impact this would have, because it allowed her to really focus on other areas and to have more time for more support classes, and she flourished. And some of the main issues, though, that we were having around this time was that Chloe had been referred to a service for support. She ended up being discharged as it didn't fit the remit of the service. So then we were told that Chloe's issues were not mental health, so that the local children and adolescent mental health service couldn't support her because the issues were organic in nature. I will say that every single clinician that we came across, they did everything that they could. They held on to Chloe for as long as humanly possible until she had to be discharged. We were discharged from this service a total of 3 times. And it meant that Chloe had no support in terms of clinicians to guide us through any bumpy roads or anything that Chloe would come across where Chloe would need support herself. So eventually, when Chloe's little sister was diagnosed with autism, the psychologist doing the assessment heard Chloe's story and made a referral on Chloe's behalf. And 4 years after that, Chloe's name came to the top of the list. So by the time that Chloe received solid services, it was 9 to 10 years from the onset of encephalitis. In around 2018, Chloe started having non-epileptic seizures. We now know that were triggered by an ear infection that's ongoing. So she had 5 of these in total that went on for about an hour and a half each. And every time I presented her to the hospital, and eventually, I'd been bringing her to a different hospital. So eventually, the lovely neurologist at this hospital agreed to take on Chloe's case. And it was at this point that things really started to change. The neurologist looked at Chloe as a whole person, didn't just look at like epilepsy and this kind of stuff. They looked at her in a holistic point of view, and that was a huge, huge change. It wasn't just about seizures, and Chloe was finally referred to the National Rehabilitation Hospital, which is only down the road from us, actually. I can walk to it. Chloe finished primary school in June 2021, and in March 22, towards the end of a bumpy first year in secondary school, Chloe received 6 weeks as an outpatient on the Daisy Ward unit in the National Rehabilitation Hospital in Dún Laoghaire. What an incredible place that is. It's just got everything you could dream of, everything. And finally, in conjunction with the Children's Disability Network team and the National Rehabilitation Hospital, Chloe has a superpowered team that will remain with her until she's 18. These people are able to make recommendations for school and guide us as parents and Chloe through her acquired brain injury. And I feel that we're really fortunate, and Chloe is very fortunate as well to have these people, but it's terrible, I think, that it took 10 years to get there. Chloe doesn't often talk, I promise I'm coming to the end. She doesn't often talk about having encephalitis. She is starting to open up now nearly 12 years later. But when you ask her what it's like, you know, what she'd like to share about her recovery, she gave me 2 points. She said that she always remembers trying to eat straight away after having her feeding tube removed, and that it wasn't a pleasant experience. And she now has a lot of food sensitivities. So her recommendation is to have a list of all the foods that you like to eat and have it handy. And she said to make sure then that you always have a stock of these foods in so that you can rotate them so you don't get bored. And the other thing, so I think there's another family picture there. That's all of us. This is Chloe now. So she would like to share as well to other people like her that not to worry what anybody else thinks. She would like you to know that you should definitely take your movement breaks when you need them in school, and 100% don't be afraid to take quiet time to recover from the day if necessary. Thank you very much.